Texas A&M's matchup with the Texas Longhorns is the most difficult game on the Aggies schedule.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got an interesting show here today. And this is one I previewed the other day. I think there's a significant difference between the most difficult games for the Aggies and the most important games for the Aggies. You know, I think a lot of people are quick to look at the challenging games on the schedule and go, those are the most important games. And I don't disagree. I disagree. So I have created a list of the 5 most difficult games and an honorable mention, and the 5 most important games and an honorable mention. And these lists are very different. So we're going to go difficult first, and then we'll talk about the important list. So difficult first, and my number one game is Texas. You know, you never want to give your rival credit. The last thing I want to do on a Thursday morning is sit here and rave about how good I think Texas is going to be. But here we are. Texas is going to be really, really, really good this season. Really good. And, you know, once again, as painful as it is to say that, you have to respect how good this football team is going to be this season. You know, Quinn Ewers is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. You got a really good offensive. Weapons. You've got a solid defense. I mean, this is going to be a well-rounded football team. It's going to be a top 10 team, top 5 team, and they're going to be tough to beat. Now, you're going to notice a trend with the top 4 most challenging or with the most difficult games on the schedule, and that is they are all at Kyle Field. Something we have continued to discuss here at Locked On Aggies. But this is a home game for Texas A&M. This is the final game of the regular season. So the challenging part of this game, and I think that it's funny, I always say that rivalries sometimes take this stuff out of it. You know, I mean, there's times where you watch the Michigan, Ohio State, the Iron Bowl, the Egg Bowl, whatever it is, whatever significant rivalry you're watching. Normally, not always, like last year, you know, Ohio State, Michigan, lately they've both been top teams. I guess the Iron Bowl would be a better example because, you know, Alabama's been so much better than Auburn lately, if you want to go that way. That game seems to always be close, even when Alabama's a lot better. I think we see this in rivalries a lot. Texas A&M, whether they win or not, I do not know. Obviously, I can't sit here and say, I think the Aggies win that game. But I do think if Texas A&M loses, it's going to be a really close game. Now, I have talked about how if this game was in Austin, I wouldn't sit here with any sort of confidence whatsoever about this game. Knowing that it is at Kyle Field, and I've said this before, the reason I think the Aggies have a legitimate chance is just because you are reviving a rivalry. It's at your home field. The crowd is going to be pumped up, whether you have 2 wins or you have 8 wins, you know, whatever it is, you're going to be pumped up for this football game. Like I said, I mean, seriously, you could be winless. You could be 0-for, and Kyle Field will be rocking for this football game. So the Aggies have a shot. I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm not saying that, but I believe I've talked about my whole destiny thing. I really do believe in that. I know, you know, it's not a real thing, but it's a thing to me. And I really believe that. And I just think it's there in this game, but that regardless of if Texas A&M wins, if they lose, this is the most difficult game on the schedule. And honestly, I think there's a significant gap. The number 2 game I have, and I'll tell you, I think if we end up doing this list, what was Texas A&M's 5 most difficult games? This won't be number 2, but heading into the season, I have it number 2, and that's Notre Dame. Notre Dame, they are always the preseason darling, and they always disappoint. I said it's kind of how Texas A&M's been recently, but now it's Notre Dame's been the same thing. And it's funny because I already see people predicting that in articles on X. I already see folks saying, "Yeah, I don't think Notre Dame's going to be all that we are anticipating them to be." So, their defense is going to be really good. I'm pretty sure they're going to have some really good corners. We're going to really deep dive into that game once we get 2-3 weeks out. But Notre Dame is going to be a really, really good football team. They're going to be a talented football team. Whether it pans out for wins, we don't know that. But talent, they're going to be talented. And it's once again, I feel like we have eerily similar conversations about Texas A&M and Notre Dame. It's just kind of reality. But this is going to be an interesting football game, ladies and gentlemen. I've talked about, I think this game, my confidence level when it comes to winning is much higher than the Texas game. I think the Aggies have a legitimate shot to win this game. I think that Notre Dame's going to be a good team, but I think they're going to be overrated. I think that, can Riley Leonard be a top 5, top 10 teams quarterback? I think that's going to be interesting. I think Riley Leonard's a great quarterback, but can he be that kind of face of college football guy? And I don't really know. And it's funny because that's, Mike Elko's guy, but that'll be interesting. So that's why I have Notre Dame number 2. 3, I have LSU. And I have LSU 3 because of talent. The question marks around LSU have to do with their quarterback, Nussmeier, a dude who could be great, but we don't know. He could be awesome. He could be not very good. We just don't know. That's just the reality here. I really don't know what is going to happen with Nussmeier. I think he's going to be a good player. Is he going to be this elite player that we think? I don't know. He could be. He could not be. I think this could go either way. So that is why I have LSU 3 over Missouri, who's 4. I just think that LSU is more talented. And I think the X factor of Nussmeier, like if he ends up being a hit, then they're going to be really, really good. So number 4, I have Missouri. Once again, in Missouri, and I hate saying this. I mean, I am 90% bought in that they're just going to be good now. I'm 90% bought into that, but it's hard for me to get 100% bought into that. And I kind of think that's my issue is like, I think Missouri is going to be a good football team. I do. I believe Missouri is going to be a solid team. Are they going to be this elite monster that people think they're going to be? It's like, I need to see it for sure. I need to see it, but it's still the number 4 game. I just think some might have it number 3 over LSU. And when it comes to difficulty, and I think LSU is going to be better. I do. I think LSU is better. I like the Aggies' chances of beating Missouri more than I like their chances of beating LSU. That's just the reality here. So Missouri's my number 4 game, and it's going to be a tough one. Number 5 is Auburn, just because I think that Auburn is going to be better than people are giving them credit for. And also, I think that it's a road game. I also believe that when you're playing them, which of course is the game before Texas, they're going to be kind of hitting their stride. So that is why I have that game 5th when it comes to difficulty. And then my honorable mention is the Florida game. Once again, I think you could go back and forth on this game and the Auburn game when it comes to the 5th spot. I just think Auburn's going to be a little bit better than Florida. And I think that game being deeper in the season, if Auburn does end up being better, they'll be hitting their stride. So that is why I have those 2 games in the order that they are. So, hey, moving right on to the most important games on the schedule, and number one is Auburn. And I'll tell you why coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I have got to tell you about our wonderful friends over at Game Time. Ask me, Andrew, what were you doing last night? I'll tell you. I'm going to a music festival, whatever, country music festival, I guess what you call it, on Saturday. Everybody, all my buddies all are. We're having a party before. It's going to be a great time. Party at my house. It's going to be a great time. Locked On Aggies fam, be there. It's going to be great. But, and my buddy was like, okay, I got to get a ticket. In a crunch, got to get a ticket. I said, dude, Game Time. It's the only place you should ever buy a ticket to anything. And I helped him use it. He used code Locked On College, got $20 off his purchase, and absolutely loved using it. I tell everybody buying a ticket to anything, use Game Time. Whether it's a sporting event, a concert, a music festival, theater, going to see a comedian, going to see a show somewhere, whatever you're buying a ticket for, you should be buying that ticket on Game Time, and there is no exception. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA or any other kind of tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So, pivoting now to the most important games on the schedule. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because I said it a few minutes ago, but I think and you'll see in this list, there is such a difference to me in the most difficult and the most important games. I think sometimes people go, well, the most important games are the most difficult ones, which is still true. Like pretty much all of these games are on each list. A lot of it is reversed, and you'll see. But I think that the more toss-up games are the more important games, rather than your Texas and Notre Dames. Which, I think Texas A&M very well could win those two football games. A lot of people aren't going to agree with that statement. A lot of people are going to say, well, A&M ain't going to win those two games. So that's why, okay, let's say people believe that. Those then become less important, more difficult, in the games that are more toss-ups. While I do still think those games are toss-ups, and I do still think the Aggies can win, those games move to the top of the list. Also want to say before I get into this list, tomorrow's episode of Locked On Aggies, it's already pre-recorded with my good buddy, Zach Blackerby. Happy for him. He and his wife are on a vacation right now. He's host of Locked On Auburn, and I think they're in the Bahamas and celebrating their anniversary. He sent me a video of two seagulls like standing on top of one another and walking. It was the coolest thing. But tomorrow's show's pre-recorded. It's a really fun episode breakdown of this Auburn game, which we're getting ready to talk about. So it's going to be a fun one. So be ready for that one tomorrow morning. Most important game, Auburn. Auburn is the number one most important game to me because I think it is your chance. If you want to win 8 or 9 football games, Auburn is a must-win game. Especially 9 wins, especially 9. I think there's still a path to 8 wins if you lose at Auburn. You would pretty much have to win one of those 4 games that are the ones at home, Texas, Notre Dame, LSU, Missouri, and then you'd have to beat Florida. Still manageable. But when it comes to importance, Auburn's number one. I think that they're going to be really, really underrated. Not saying they're going to be better than Texas A&M. I'm saying they're going to be better than people are going to give them credit for. I still have question marks about the quarterback, Peyton Thorne. We have that discussion tomorrow with Zach Blackerby. But, that's my concerns with him. I have quarterback concerns, and it's the most important position in the field. But they did a good job adding weapons. If the weapons are better, it could potentially make Peyton Thorne better. So that is what's going to be interesting about Auburn. So that is my number one most important game. If you want to get to this 8 or 9 win threshold, got to win it. Got to win it. That's why it's the most important game, I believe, on Texas A&M's schedule. Number 2 is Missouri. And I went back and forth. I'll go ahead and tell you, number 3 is Florida. I went back and forth on this for a very long time. But I think that Missouri at home and at Florida, and honestly at Auburn, are all about the same level of toss-up. I think that Auburn is probably the most challenging game by a little bit, by just a little bit there. And then I think that actually, it's the most important game by a little bit. I think Missouri's under it barely, and then I think Florida's under that barely. I think it's really close margin on all these things. So Missouri's number 2 because I think that's your most of the games that we have talked about here for months at Locked On Aggies, the most challenging home games, and they're all at home. I think that's the most winnable. I do, and maybe I am being, I'm not being truthful with myself or with reality about how good Missouri is going to be, and I'm not knocking Missouri. What they've done there is really impressive, but I really want to see. I want to see it. And I think that Missouri very well could be the most winnable of those home games. So that is why it's the second most important game for me. Third is Florida. I think that Florida, I'm going to be honest with you, I think the wheels are coming off there. I don't think they're going to have a good season. I think Napier is going to be gone. So I think that they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be an okay football team, but their schedule is very, very challenging. It's a daunting schedule. So I think that Florida is going to be a tough team to play, a tough place to play. But I think the Aggies are the better football team. I really do. And I think that they should be able to go on the road and get this victory. Number 4 is where I have LSU. To me, LSU is the second most winnable of those 4 challenging home games. And same thing with the difficult thing. It's most important because you want to win 8 football games. Okay? All you got to do is split with Auburn and Florida and win one of those 4 games. You do that, you take care of business everywhere else, the games you should, you can win 8 football games. You win one of those and you go 2-0 at Auburn at Florida, then 9 wins is possible. So LSU, I think it is a winnable game. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think it is winnable. I think they're talented. I do think Kelly's a good football coach. I know some might not agree there. But I think this is going to be a tough game for the Aggies. But I think it's going to be winnable. I think it's important because it's the second most winnable of those challenging 4 home games. Excuse me. So number 5 is Notre Dame. Kind of the same reason. I think it's the third easiest of these home games. And I think it's winnable. I think it's important because I wanted to have this one a little bit higher. I just think that they're going to be a little bit better than LSU. I think that you start off the year with a bang if you beat Notre Dame. You really I think the momentum, if you start the year with a massive win at home in front of your fan base to kick off the Mike Elko era over Notre Dame, the excitement around this program is going to just skyrocket. People are going to be really, really excited. So that's why I have that 5. And then honorable mention is Texas. I'd love to have this game higher. I just think Texas is going to be really good. I'm not going to sit here and disrespect an opponent just because they're a rival. They're really, really good. This is not going to be an easy game for the Aggies to win. So they're my honorable mention because they're going to be good and they're going to be tough to beat. So the last little thing I want to do here before we move on to our final topic of the day is I want to rank the 3 games that are the SEC games but aren't on any of these lists, which would be Arkansas, Mississippi State, and South Carolina. So I want to rank these 3 games, and I'll just do based off difficulty, not off importance, because I think they're all around the same level of difficulty because you need to win all of them. So they're all road games except for, the Arkansas game, neutral site. But the number 1, I have South Carolina. I just think they're going to be a little bit better than these other 2 teams. I think they're going to be a little bit better. Tough place to play, sandstorm, towels. Another difficult environment. I think that they're going to be fine, not elite. Fine. Then I've got the Arkansas game. I just think Petrino calling plays without people bothering him. I think he's going to be pretty good. I still think the wheels fall off at Arkansas as well, and I don't see the staff there next season. But I do still believe that Arkansas is going to be okay. They went and got a transfer quarterback. I think they're going to be fine. Not elite, not good, fine. And this game's always weird. The neutral site game with Arkansas is always weird. Last year was the first year you really kind of, beat them, handsomely. So that's my second one there. My third one is Mississippi State. I don't know if I believe this Lebby guy. I don't know if I believe in him, A, and then B, I think he needs more time. I don't think this year is going to be the year. So I think, once again, they're going to be it's an SEC opponent on the road. Never an easy thing, never something to completely write off. But I just don't think Mississippi State is going to be very good. So that is how I would rank those three games. So let me know in the YouTube comments. If you're listening on a podcast platform, head on over to YouTube. Shoot us a message on X. Shoot me a message on X. Shoot the show, whatever. Shoot the show a message or me a message. Let me know how you would rank these. Would you change the difficult rankings list, the important rankings list, or these three games list? What would you change? Do you agree? Do you disagree with anything? Let me know those things in the YouTube comments. Before we call it a day here at Locked On Aggies, and kind of a week for me because tomorrow's show's recorded and you're going to hear something we've already recorded, I want to talk about, did Texas A&M do enough in this second transfer portal window, yes or no? That is going to be the conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. So, did Texas A&M do enough in this second transfer portal window? I think the answer, honestly, is yes and no. You had Shane Calhoun, the tight end, Kali Fui. I'm still working on that from Utah. We'll get a dial in. The center. Then Solomon DeShields, the linebacker from Pitt. Jacob Bostic, the receiver from the offensive powerhouse, Iowa. And Josh Seliskar, the defensive lineman edge rusher from Central Florida. So, that's what you brought in this window. And it's okay. So what did we say? What did we say you needed in the transfer portal in this window? We said you needed a linebacker. And then when Alex Howard left, you really needed a linebacker. We said you needed another receiver after Jabri Barber got hurt. And we said you needed some offensive line help. You added a solid depth piece and potential starters in Kali, the center, and DeShields, the linebacker, in those positions. So, do I think Texas A&M could have gone and got another receiver? Sure. Could they have, pushed harder after Lambert Smith, their receiver? That's our conversation actually a little bit with Zach Blackerby tomorrow of Locked On Auburn, because he ended up going to Auburn. So that's a conversation for tomorrow. He had a laugh at us about that one. You'll see. And then Jacob Bostic, you go and get that receiver you need. Could you have gone and got another with maybe a little bit more playing experience? Sure. I think Solomon DeShields was a really, really good linebacker add. I think he's going to be a solid player. I think he's going to make a run at that starting spot right next to Terrion York. So that is going to be interesting. And then I think Kali's a really solid, former Power 5, now center last year, coming over to Texas A&M, made 8 starts last year for the Utes of Utah, and can help you after you lost Bryce Foster. So I think that, could you have done more? Sure. But you did enough to where I'm not like, oh, I'm concerned. This is a problem. We are in trouble. So that is my thoughts on what Texas A&M did in this second portal window. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Once again, tomorrow's episode, a lot of fun. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say similarities, but just, correlation between Texas A&M and Auburn right now, between DJ Durkin, Isaiah Rakes, and Keandre Lambert Smith. And there's just so much you know what I mean? And to discuss, we talk about that. We talk about this game. We talk about the importance of this game and all that. And that'll be tomorrow's episode of Locked On Aggies. It's going to be a fun one. So be ready for that tomorrow because we're breaking down, as I just discussed, one of the most important games on Texas A&M schedule. But like I said, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Helps a ton. Leave a 5-star review on podcast platforms. Also helps a ton. Appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your day. And we will see you for that show tomorrow.